to another inspiring episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, the podcast where we decode the tools, ideas, and the breakthroughs that help you thrive in a world that's always evolving. Yeah. And the listeners, now let me ask you this: what does education have to do with the mental wellness? Great question, right? Yes. Like most people think of online courses as the business tools, or maybe you can say info dumps, right? But what if they could be the healing tools as well? What if the right kind of course could not only teach you something, but also transform your thinking, calm your chaos, and reconnect you to your purposes, right? Yes. So today's guest doesn't just build courses, she designs experiences that stick. Meet the brilliant Dr. Carrie Rose. Welcome to the show, Dr. Carrie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I love the direction of your show and especially where you're going with this episode. I can feel it already and I have chills.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Carrie. And um, before we delve deep into this discussion, because this is also something which I really, really love about this topic is, and but before we do that, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all the listeners. Dear listeners, Dr. Carey is a best selling author of The Completed Course and a trailblazing expert in scalable education that changes lives. So, she is the go to strategist for thought leaders, high level executives, and the visionary brands that want more than just the engagement. So, they want the impact, right? So, she weaves together instructional design, storytelling, psychology, and the soul. And also, today, we will explore how her work helps people feel more human, more empowered, and more aligned. So, I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show again, Dr. Gary.
Yes, thank you so much. Let's dive in. There's a world here, right?
Exactly. Lovely. So Dr. Carey, you have said that, I mean, you have said before that the information is not the transformation, and I really love that. Like, if you can share, like, what does it actually take um, to move someone from passive learner to a active changer, you can say.
I love this discussion so much. First of all, kind of going back to what you were saying
Mm.
earlier, like, what if, like, what does that world look like? And when I think about online courses, I really do pay attention to those completion rates because they have a 3 to 5% completion rate on average for most online courses. I've had clients get up to 97% completion rates. So the actual opposite of what the norm is totally possible. And as long as you know it's possible for you, then it becomes probable for you. You just have to figure out the how, right?
Yeah.
Like how you're going to get there and make that kind of an impact. But for me, if 97% of people that take these online programs are dropping out, that's 97% of those purchases that in an extremely lucrative industry, and then we've only seen it grown over the last, a decade that I've been involved in it at least. Um, 97% of those people purchased something and didn't go through with it, didn't get their outcome. So those are all of their hopes and dreams of what they wanted their bank accounts to look like, their health to look like, their relationships to look like. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot that was invested in there in the form of their desires more so than the dollars, right? And so seeing that not come to fruition, I say, is like the biggest letdown. So my main focus is how do we get to the world where, right, they actually get that. And it isn't in the form of information, right? Like think of what you need right now. Do you actually need to be told what something is at this point in time? Like, can you just Google or chat GPT about everything on the planet, right? And instructions too. And they might not be the right instructions, so we're still at that point, but, like, you can get how-tos very simple on ChatGPT as well. Like, a lot of these things are that's not the answer anymore. And people have to adjust to that, but it's never been the answer. And that's the actual truth. Um, if you think about anything that's occurred for you in your life, when it really made a difference, it wasn't just that you knew something different or you did something different, it was that you were someone different. And it's always been the answer, right? Like if you look back at any major stage of your life, like parenthood is a really easy one. It's not easy to be a parent, but it's an easy example for a lot of us to attach to, right? You were not a parent, all of a sudden you were a parent, and it was an entirely different way of being, and you can't explain it to somebody that only has dogs. It's not the same,
Mhm.
but it's that being, those were kind of like baptism by fire moments, but in terms of actually getting people to transform and become someone else, it's actually quite easy. I mean, we overcomplicate it,
Mm.
but it really has to do with not what are we telling them, but it has more to do with how are we guiding them to uncovering the answers for themselves.
True. Wow. Like, wow. I mean, and where do like most online course creators get it wrong? Like, especially when it comes to designing for lasting internal shifts.
Yeah, I think the one that they mostly get it wrong with actually impacts them and their business as well as the outcomes for their students or participants. So thinking about it in this way, there are some people that when they make online courses, they're just trying to get dollars, right? Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
there are those. I like to assume that that's an anomaly and a smaller percentage than we think it is,
Mm.
right? And so we're not going to talk to that. We're going to talk to the majority of online course creators that have a strong sense of purpose, a strong sense of wanting to help others, right? And really wanting to make a difference in others' lives. And so, I mean, if you think about it, you're not going to start a business just because, at least not in a personal development sense or in a professional
Mm.
development sense. It's not like for giggles. It's not the easiest thing you could do.
Mm.
Like the easiest thing you could do might be to own a laundromat, It's like
Yeah.
there are other easy ways, right? Or a
Yeah.
vending machine business or an ATM machine. There are other easy ways. So, like if you're creating a consulting and a transformation type of business, you want them different. You want to help them. You're looking for like, gosh, I wish I had this when I was in their shoes to some degree or another.
Mm.
I wish I knew this. I wish I had a different approach. I want to make a difference here. Right. And that it can be an incredibly lucrative industry. But if you nail this part, the one thing that I see over and over is that people put all of their content into one program.
Mm.
And it comes from that very like, I do believe it comes from a very, a powerful desire to an intent to help others, right? And it's also, I think, too, a confusion that we have around what value means, right? And so we think of value in terms of I'm giving more time, I'm giving more programs, I'm giving more, right? And that creates an increase of value. That's not what think of, if you go to like an all you can eat restaurant, maybe on the first
Mm.
plate, that's fine. But the second and the third really, I mean, like it gets extraordinary, right? Like
Yeah.
more isn't necessarily better. And more is actually like an inverse. So
Yeah.
thinking about it this way, when we're giving more things that require time from people, we're actually taking their time. So we're taking their life force and the most precious gift that they have on this planet,
Mm.
right? So there's an inverse of that. They don't want the longest course in existence. They don't want 25 hours of your knowledge. What they want is a screwdriver if that'll solve the problem. They want the
True.
fastest direct route to their outcome, and that's it. And you can build a series of outcomes that encapsulate the entirety of your journey if you want.
Mm.
If you're looking at, you've got, well, I really do have 25 hours worth of things that I can help people with. Like you've had an extraordinary life. Like look at you for all of that. But the main thing here is how do you get that customer avatar, that human being in front of you to get to the point where their life has
Mm.
become different in alignment with the outcomes that they're looking for.
True. Exactly. Ah. And and I mean, I have to say that this reminds me of like so many courses. Like I have seen that feel like the digital textbooks, but you finish them, but nothing changes. And
Yes.
um, and like definitely your work seems to awaken the inner voice in people, not just in the mind. So that's a great part of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And also, are there any specific learning techniques or maybe the rituals that support clarity and confidence um, rather than stress?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's some things that we can just get away from, especially if you're creating any kind of transformational program for adult learners. So thinking about things like this, when you say you have tons of examples
Mm,
of bad programs, you've seen them, I've seen them, right? How do those things get created? Like, do you think somebody woke up and was like, I want to create a really bad program, right? No, they sat down, they didn't know what they were doing, and they're like, let me think about the people that taught me and what they did, and then let me think about how I learn. And usually when they create an online course, it's a reflection of one of those 2 things, right? And so you might get, like, really long courses with lots of multiple choice tests and things that try to add significance to the program, like a certification as a result of your score on the test or whatever. Or, there's other options in there too, right? So
mm,
things that might look different in terms of, oh gosh, maybe I only learn by somebody telling me how to do something. So my entire course is a series of, what could be inside of how-to manuals on the internet, right? And then that's the only thing that's inside of my course. But if you actually need to understand why something is, you might never understand what's going on inside of that program. So that's usually what happens from what I can tell. And the thing is they're probably both bad answers. Like, if you look in your life, like, the people that really stand out to you in terms of, like, who was
mm,
teaching you, there's probably only a handful that, like, wow, that person actually made a difference. Not like every example you've ever had has been great, right? And the thing is, when we just do it based on how we learn, that is not really that helpful either, because, like, how many of us learn differently than the other, right? Like, it's very vast, the intricacies that go into actually differentiating a program by the process to make sure that every student really learns no matter what, right? So, I think that that is a part of what makes some of these programs so difficult to complete, is that a lot of us are missing that piece of how do we actually get them to do it.
yeah, yeah. So lovely. That's great. And also, if I have to ask, like your book, The Completed Course, it speaks to the massive number of people who don't finish online programs. And
Mm.
so, what psychological or maybe the emotional barriers are behind that? Like, how can creators design for that completion? I mean, picture.
Sure. I mean, I think that the main thing we touched on earlier is to understand that you have a customer success path that you're walking them down. It's not about one program, right? You want them to have their world different. It's about looking at things in a more modular nature with shorter, more immediate wins, right? And things that are actually going to make a difference to them. If we can get that alignment piece, that is absolutely huge, right? In terms of that too, we're not in the same situation that we used to be a decade ago or 15 years ago when it came to these online programs. You know, um, it is a lot more in regards to nurturing that community, whether you have a community forum is attached to your course, or whether you have an email list might be your community, or the people that show up for you online and social might be a community. Your listeners on this podcast is a community, right? And so how you show up for them ongoing is going to make a big difference to them, you know?
Mm,
There are people that have developed really specific and really nurturing online presence, right? And those are the people that usually, when you look at what they're doing, they're selling out. People keep coming back and they're staying because they feel that kind of energy. There's actually research that supports that the relationship between the instructor and the student can make a difference in terms of what happens inside of their learning environment. So that can be in person, online, whatnot. Right. So we're looking at a lot of mitigating factors. in
Okay.
terms of, like, what it really takes to, keep them engaged and keep them with you.
Mm. Understood. Okay. Okay. So, wow. And what mindset shifts like can learners adopt? Um, like so that they stop abandoning their growth halfway through.
Right. I think some things where how to say it. We talk about like I'm in Generation X. We definitely did not get participation trophies, and we kind of
Mm.
like talk about some of the other
Yeah.
generations that did.
Mhm.
But when we look at it as adult learners, it's almost like we want the participation trophy, and it doesn't do anything for you, right? It's more about kind of holding on to some level of grit. And I think that grit is probably one of the biggest mindset hacks that you can have entirely, right? So whether this is a business owner or, someone that's just going through life,
Mm.
right? Like, the more grit that you have, the more ability you have to
Yeah.
be resilient, to hold your own feet to the fire.
Mm.
That is going to change everything. And I think that there's another side of it too, like
Mhm.
my husband says this a lot, like, he thinks that a lot of people have it that life should be easy,
Okay.
right? And that, like, it should be easy. It's like, well, no, it's a blessing when it is easy,
Mm.
but, sometimes there are moments that are a little harder, and so grit can work wonders in that direction too, but I think that there is a level of lack of self-awareness, and then, you know, looking at in terms of, like, how many things do you actually do that you follow through on? Right, and this can go in both directions too because, like, somebody that's, like, an overachiever,
Mm.
they might sign themselves up for too many things, right, and actually run themselves ragged because they're trying to do too much at once, and someone who's an underachiever might just, sign themselves up and go, "Okay, well, it doesn't really matter," right, and so I think a lot of that comes down to, like, are we creating appropriate goals, and then do we have any, like, actual I don't wanna say consequences for ourselves, but, some sort of a fail-safe where we actually follow through on it.
Got it. That's a great one. Yeah. And like if someone listening wants to create a course with depth, not just for
Mm.
the dollars, what would be the first question they should ask themselves? What do you guide?
Oh, goodness. Yes, okay. I think that the first so it's so hard to get down to that, right? It's really a combination, right? So they wanna help, they have a purpose, the main thing is who are they helping? But there's a lot of questions that go with that, right? Like, who is that customer avatar? Who are you actually trying to support, and where on their journey are they?
Mm.
Right? Because we could go from an egocentric place of, I have my purpose, so my purpose is this one thing, but
Mm.
your purpose might be like 3 steps ahead of where they're at,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so what do you need to build in order to get them to that point? And will that matter to them if they are there? You know?
Mm.
If it doesn't, then it's probably about creating a different avatar, or it might be a different offer, even if you feel like really strongly, inclined towards it.
True. True. Exactly. Huh. And um lovely. That's really lovely. And that question, like, is this helping me come home to myself? Uh
Mm.
should be at the heart of every relation, every module, every offering. So what you say?
Definitely. I think that that's the ultimate beauty that we have of these programs, right? Because and I say this like a lot of it is about the user because
Mm.
if they don't purchase, they don't get any impact, which means it has to be valuable to them in the first place, right? They have research that says, like, if you don't charge, that's, like, definitely gonna not have them
Mhm.
completing your program, so you have to charge something for it, right? They have to purchase it. They have to have a desire to make that purchase in the first place, right? But there is that piece of you have to be in alignment with it, right? Like, are you the right Sherpa at this moment in time for them,
Mm.
you know? And I think that if you feel like that's a strong yes, then that's what's on your heart and that's a calling. And I think there's also some levels too of like, are you equipped with the information that will help them with this part?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, have you already had that as a part of your journey? Because if
Mm,
not, there's things hit us at different times, right? It might be something like, this is the moment that I want to go ahead and create my course. And it might be like, you know what? I'm going to just double down on making myself even better in this one particular area
mm,
while I'm doing this, while I'm building the course or like in front of building the course, just so that I'm even better prepared to
mm.
walk these people on their journey.
Correct. Exactly. Wow. Wow. So what an enriching conversation, Dr. Carey. I mean, your insights reminds us that education is not just about scaling the business. It's all about scaling meaning and also how we learn, why we learn, what kind of life that learning leads us towards. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a fun conversation.
Lovely. And for the listeners, like if you have ever felt overwhelmed by your own brilliance or frustrated by the content that didn't connect, then take a deep breath. Go inward because the right message delivered with the care can actually change not only what you know, but um, but who you become. So if you're thinking about building something, a course, a brand, a body of work, then remember that the process of creating can be an act of healing as well. So, with this, definitely, I'll quickly love to ask Dr. Carey, like if someone wants to connect, how they can connect with you.
Sure. If they want to find me on LinkedIn, that's probably the best place. Dr. Carrie Rose at LinkedIn.
Amazing, amazing, great. So, with this, hope, dear listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And until next time, stay mindful, stay curious, and always keep learning in a way that lifts your life. So, thank you so much.